2018. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Jameson?
Here.
Toussaint?
Here.
Waite?
Here.
Zimmerman?
Present.
Mayor Richardson?
Here. Will you stand with me for the pledge, please? Place your hand over your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing on the agenda is a presentation for the Rotary End Polo campaign, and it's it's a proclamation commemorating the World Polio Day. There we go. Okay. So, Larry, if you want to stand and receive this, I'll read it, and then I'll come down and present the thing to you. Okay. Sure. I'll give you a chance to speak. This is Rotary International Proclamation commemorating World Polio Day. Whereas Rotary International, founded on February 23, 1905 in Chicago, Illinois, USA, is the world's first and one of the largest nonprofit service organizations. And whereas there are over 1.2 million Rotary Club members, comprised of professional and business leaders in over 35,000 clubs in 200 countries and geographic areas, and over 100 Rotary Club members in 4 clubs within our local area, namely Solvang, San Ynez Valley, Los Olivos, and Buellton. And whereas the Rotary motto, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And whereas in 1985, the Rotary launched Polio Plus and spearheaded the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, which today includes the World Health Organization's U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to immunize, there we go, the children of the world against polio. And whereas polio cases have dropped by 99.9% since 1988, and the world stands on the threshold of eradicating the disease. And whereas to date, Rotary has contributed more than $1.7 billion and countless volunteer hours to the protection of more than 2 billion children in 122 countries. And whereas Rotary is currently working to raise an additional $150 million, which, if realized, will be tripled by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for a total of up to $450 million over the next 3 years. And whereas these efforts are providing much-needed operational support, medical personnel, laboratory equipment, and educational materials for the health workers and parents. And whereas, in addition, Rotary has played a major role in decisions by donor governments to contribute more than $8 billion to the effort. Now, therefore, I, Jim Richardson, Mayor of the City of Solvang, do hereby proclaim October 24th, 2018, as World Polio Day in Solvang, and encourage all citizens to join myself and Rotary International in the fight for a polio-free world. So it's my pleasure to present Larry Edwards with this proclamation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you like to say a few words? I would. Thanks. I'd like to thank the council for this recognition. I think most of what I would say is included in the proclamation. 33 years, $1.7 billion, 2 billion children protected. Working with the Gates Foundation now to raise another $450 million over 3 years, of which Rotary will raise $150 million. And that's what we're working on now with the current campaign. As the proclamation states, the actual World Polio Day is Wednesday, the 24th. It is the 6th recognition of the birthday of Jonas Salk. But there will be activities going on throughout the week to support this cause. Solvang Rotary, of which I'm a member, my name is Larry Edwards, and I'm currently president of the Solvang Rotary Club. We have a table tomorrow at the Chamber Expo. We have a 5% Friday at the New Frontiers this coming Friday, so please shop New Frontiers Friday. Lompoc Rotary has a scratch kitchen fundraiser on Wednesday evening this week. So if you're over there, attend that. Mike Lamoda from the San Ynez Valley Club is also here tonight to accept the proclamation. So thank you again. I brought enough in Rotary now, in Polio now pins for each of you, if I may.
Thank you.
I had a father-in-law, a sister-in-law, and my first cousin all were in iron lungs at one time in their life. A lot of people. It's an insidious disease. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. You know, I'm old enough to remember the days when my parents didn't want to let me go swimming in the city swimming pools.
Oh, the polio pool.
Yes, and I remember that when the Salk vaccine came out, how happy I was that I was able to get it to my children. You know, because it's a wonderful effort that the Lion or that the Rotary is doing, and thank you again, Larry, for allowing us to make the proclamation. Next is the city manager's report.
First, just want to remind everyone in the community that the Solvang Haunted House is coming back to town October 30th and 31st. Fred's got another great scheme, Carnival, or Carnival. If you like clowns or don't like clowns, they'll be there. And then just a reminder, our next city council meeting will fall on a Tuesday because Veterans Day is the 11th, but our city holiday is the 12th, so the next council meeting will be on a Tuesday, November 12th. And then just I want to thank the businesses and residents in Solvang. They've gone through quite a bit of consternation, shall we say, with our capital improvement program that is robust. Matt has got a robust program going on last month and had a lot of water shutdowns, road closures, and those types of things. But it's all for good cause. We're upgrading things in the city, and the capital plan is coming to fruition. So just thanks to the residents and businesses for their patience.
Thank you for that. And next is public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct comments to the city council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. I have several speaker slips, and I'll start with Tracy Fahad, followed by Carrie Rossetti.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, members of the audience. Tracy Farhad, Executive Director of the Solvang Conference and Visitors Bureau, for your tourism update. We had an amazing inaugural Solvang Stomp. It was a grape event. Sorry. So just wanted to thank, we had nearly 500 attendees for the first time. 90% of our attendees or ticket buyers were from Southern California, with another 9% from the Bay Area. We also partnered with Santa Barbara Vintners Association to do the premiere of the movie Psalm 3 at Solvang Festival Theater. They had an additional 385 ticket holders for that movie, and that was a very exciting first film sponsorship the CVB assisted with. But I want to especially thank the city for sponsoring the event for the Grape Stomp, as well as the Shumash Casino and Resort, and Visit the San Ynez Valley. They were our lead sponsors for this event, as well as Lucas Llewellyn for assisting with 4 tons of grapes so that we could crush our little hearts out, as well as Nielsen's Building Materials, and the 29 wineries and the 1 brewery who made that great event happen, plus the 3 local restaurants that were serving up. And I wanted to especially thank my board of directors for chipping in and making this an event that helped fill a gap and a hole when the Harvest Festival wasn't going to be occurring, as well as my team, because we had a lot of really good people, and our Cultivate Events, our event planners, and the volunteers. Folks bought wine, they dined in town, and they stayed. So we thought it was great PR. We're sending out surveys to see how the attendees felt about it. But I know that when I hear a lot of people asking, when's the next one for next year, we know that that was a good sign of success. So again, just wanted to thank everyone who did attend and all of our great sponsors for that first annual event. And last but not least, wanted to let you know that we have 2 Danish students who are interning with us right now for the next 2 weeks. They're part of the International Baccalaureate program. And one of the students, and they're actually training with us, interning about marketing. And one of the students had been here 3 years ago as part of the Niels Brock College program, and he came back with a colleague, and they're staying at a host family here. So thanks to the Donna and Ken Anderson, and also just to know that they wanted to be here and they wanted to find out how we did things. They've been studying theory mostly, and now they want to know how it's actually applied. So we're very tickled to have them staying with us. So that's their update.
I want to know who those people were in that picture in the newspaper. That was scandalous.
Yeah. Who were those people?
Who were those people? I'd always wanted to be a redhead, so that was one, and the Miss Hamburg was the other one. But it was great to have an I Love Lucy contest. We will definitely bring that back next year. We need some more Rickies. So
Yeah, right.
thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Rossetti? Well, you're next. Got you. You want her? You want to go first instead of
Yeah,
Carrie?
if we could
Okay.
do that,
You
thanks.
got
I'm
it.
Gabe Rossetti.
You got
Thank
it.
you, Mayor, staff.
Well, I was ladies first. That's why.
Well, we go by height.
Gotcha.
Then
I'm here to
always
talk about something at the Mercantile, and it's the lighting at the Mercantile. At the last BAR meeting, with the support of the BAR, staff, and the neighbors, CBS agreed to, not the developer, CBS agreed to forego a backlit sign that was going to face west on their building. The reason that they did that was, number one, it was going to shine into the neighborhood and be seen by homes. Second, is it was not going to drive any additional patrons to their store. They realized that. And when we spoke about sign overload. We specifically spoke about what's happening at New Frontiers, and that's really what I want to address. New Frontiers, when the monument signs go in on 246 Alamo Pintado and Old Mission, they'll have 3 backlit signs. In addition to that, they have 3 large backlit signs on the building, one facing east, one facing west, one facing onto the 246. That's 6 signs. That's a lot of signs. You don't see that many signs in any buildings in Buellton. You don't see that on anything on the 101. It's sign overload. And who in the valley doesn't know where the New Frontiers is? Everybody knows where the New Frontiers is. There's not a logical reason to have the number of lit signs on that building. The target market is the community. It's not tourists. Tourists will be able to find it by the monument signs once they're up. But the target market is the community who knows exactly where that is. This number of signs also should not be at the entrance to our city. It's not compatible with the neighborhood. There's nothing else like it in this city. Again, it's sign overload. The backlit signs facing east and west have white borders. They are brighter, although they're smaller than the big sign in the front, they're brighter. The New Frontiers sign facing west, that sign is seen from neighboring homes, and they're the ones that are behind the New Frontiers and on Old Mission. And they will also be seen by the residents of the apartment buildings that Once again, the developer has changed their plans. They were going to put apartments at the back of the CVS building on the second floor. Now they're going to be in the front. So those people are going to look at that lit sign. There are also windows underneath that lit sign that at night they'll be able to see inside the store. The east-facing sign does absolutely nothing. You can't see it from Alamo Pintado. You can't see it from 246. It only makes that parking lot brighter. And that east-facing sign that looks over the Mexican restaurant lights up that, it makes the parking lot brighter and can be seen from one of the homes. They need to turn the lights off at night when the store is closed. The lights are on from dusk until dawn. They're never turned off. And in fact, we saw a car we were out for a walk one night, we saw a car make a U-turn, jet in, it had a bunch of 20-somethings, jetted in thinking New Frontiers is open. They jumped out, it's not open. What does that do when those lights are on? Brings traffic into our neighborhood, which we're overloaded with parking and traffic. New Frontiers is a natural food, holistic, community caring, and centric business, but they leave their lights on all night, which wastes energy, disturbs the neighborhood, and brings additional traffic. So we're going to ask the city, if we can, to turn the lights down. Either have them keep those two side-facing lights off at all time. There's no reason for them to be illuminated. And also, when the businesses are closed, turn those lights off and dim the interior lights. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. You ran over. I'm going to cut you into Carrie's time. So, Carrie?
All right, so Mayor, thank you, council members. I want to thank all of you for your service and how hard you work and what a difficult job this is to make all these huge decisions that you have to make. I have a deeper empathy and appreciation for what you all do now that I've been coming regarding this project and watching your meetings online. It's just incredible how much pressure and work and responsibility you guys have, and I really, really appreciate what you do. And you need to hear that because you never hear it. So with that being said, I just want to say that the Mercantile, we were really excited about this project, and we're really appreciative that Brenda let us know about the CBS going in and these lights, these lit signs that staff didn't recommend. And so they listened to us. It was the first time. We're really impressed that with the BAR, they really negotiated and said, we don't have to have that shining into the neighborhood. We'll just take that off. They did get their other sign enlarged the way they wanted it, but that's compromise, and that's fine. However, like Gabe said, because they redesigned the apartments to be on the other side of the building, their homes, their apartments now have this really bright New Frontiers light shining into their balcony, their living rooms, their bedrooms, and it's just a mistake because this project's been done in phases. And what do? You build one thing, and then you change something, and you build another, and then you go, oops, what do we do about that? So they're attractive, they just need to be turned off. It's simple. They'll still work, they'll still be visible, they just don't need to have the LED high lumen light beaming from behind them. This is really unique to have such a high profile shopping center with really big signs on it that doesn't exist anywhere, and not even in Buellton. Like Gabe said, we've been driving around and checking everything out and going, wow, this is really unique. The monument signs are another thing that's really unique. We want to learn how to figure out how we can live with this, and this is the only thing we can come up with. Dim it down. Turn those signs off on the side, and when you're not open, dim it down, turn it down. First Bank got a big sign inside their lobby that's non-compliant, and it's on at night, all night, inside their lobby. So we're just kind of like, wow, I know this is hard because there's all these moving parts and there's all these different phases to, and how do you cross-check and double-check? So that's what we're here for. We just feel like, it's up to us as members of the community to bring that to everyone's attention and see what we can do about it.
Thank you, Carrie.
Okay? Thank you.
David, is there something that we can do as a city or as a council or
At the current meeting, no. That was just brought up during public comment. You could give staff direction if there's an issue to bring forward.
I mean, as a city, can we ask them to shut off the lights, change signs, or any of that kind of stuff?
Unless there was provisions in the original conditions of approval regarding a lighting plan, your options are going to be somewhat limited. If there's a nuisance in the legal sense of the word, which is difficult to prove a public nuisance, there might be injunctive relief that you could get, but it would be difficult to prove that.
Okay, thank you. Craig Kent, followed by Lansing Duncan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Craig Kent. I've been a homeowner and a resident on Old Mission Drive for 39 years, 1901 Old Mission Drive. Tonight, I'm here to give you an update on the employee parking that's occurring on Old Mission Drive and on Honey Locust Court. Employees continue to park on Old Mission Drive and Honey Locust Court, and they consume all or almost all of the curbside parking every weekday from somewhere around 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the evening. This isn't fair to the residents. It leaves no spaces available for their use or their visitors' use, and they have a right to be able to access that curbside parking too, but they have to queue up to get that parking, which isn't right. And we've been reassured by the city and the developer repeatedly for many months that this is a temporary situation. We're what, 5 months into this now? And we're now moving into a second phase, and this is going to continue. The evidence to date does not support the assertions that this is going to go away when the mercantile is complete. Our opinion at this point is there's inadequate on-site parking for both employees and customers. And we're worried that we're going to have to live with this for all time, and that is not fair. And it's detrimental to our safety of the neighborhood for all these people. We've had some reports of people catcalling neighbors' kids. It degrades the neighborhood. It's not fair to the neighbors. And as part of the conditions, the mercantile was not supposed to negatively or adversely aggravate parking or traffic conditions in the area, and it's clearly doing that. Recently, a neighbor had an exchange about employee parking with one of the business owners, and the business owner acknowledged that the management company has rules against employee parking off-site on the curb, and this business owner said, there's not enough parking on site for my employees and my customers, and I have no choice if I want to stay in business. And we're worried that this is going to continue. So we would like to ask the city and the staff to start working on mitigation measures should this continue to be a problem once however many phases of development are done and we have all these businesses in there and employees are continuing to park on the street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Craig. Lansing Duncan.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I hate to continue, beat a dead horse, as it were, but I'm also here to talk to you about mercantile and the BAR. I did attend the BAR meeting where they were looking at the signage for CVS. They were also looking at the revisions to the building that CVS is going to be in. That whole wing, of course, is going to be occupied by CVS now, when before it could have been occupied by 6 different tenants, plus the residents upstairs. I was concerned about, besides the signage, the revisions that had been done to that building. It did not look good. And in fact, it looked so bad that the BAR told the developer that they wanted him to work on the north elevation. That's the elevation which faces Old Mission Drive. I think the west elevation is just as bad, but they didn't get that direction to work on that. That's the elevation that will face Los Padres National Forest offices. What I was concerned with was one of the follow-ups that happened to that. An action had been taken, and The developer was told to come back at the next meeting with the revisions along with his landscape plan, which he planned to do anyway, and the item was over with. Nevertheless, he persisted. He stayed there, and after every other item had been heard, he then got into essentially a private discussion with the BAR. When some neighbors like myself had left thinking this was done with, right? But instead, he sought essentially reconsideration, but there was no motion to reconsider, and the item had not been tabled. And so my perception is this is a violation of the intent of the Brown Act to bring something back up after the time it was supposed to have been dealt with. So I would recommend that your council speak to BAR to let them know what is permissible, not permissible in that regard. Will say that the developer was very insistent, so it was difficult for them to deal with.
Was there any change made to the anything?
They did not specifically make a change, but did ask him to do
they were in
that.
effect lobbying.
But
then,
simply the idea that the discussion would pursue. One of the reasons they didn't make any change, I believe, is because your staff suggested that that was not a good idea. Okay. I did want to speak about the signage in as much as CVS was asked to reduce the size of their sign, and they said, well, you gave variances to New Frontiers. Look how big their sign is. And CVS was asked to consider not illuminating it internally. And they pointed out everything else is internally illuminated. And although I agree totally with what Gabe said, the signs actually are internally illuminated. They're not just backlit, they're internally illuminated. They glow. And they give you just a strange sense. When you're in that parking lot at night, you do not feel like you're in Solvang. You feel like you're somewhere else. I do hope you'll consider what you can do to see about reducing those impacts. And one thing I can say about the sign which faces to the east is every Mission Oaks resident who drives out sees it. Nobody on Alamo Pintado can see it. It's pointless.
Thank you, Lansing. Mary Conway. Followed by Primo Castro. Court, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Mary Conway, and I'm a citizen of Solvang, as well as the Coalition Director for the Valley Youth Coalition. And it's my pleasure to be before you tonight in regards to the smoke-free policies. So I thought I would share with you a couple things from, or comments from our youth regarding smoke-free Solvang. We asked them, we told them we were coming tonight to the council meeting where you're considering the smoke-free policies here in the city, and asked if they had any thoughts on the matter. And so this was during lunch, and of course they were ready to socialize and all, but I did get a few comments. This from Pete. I think it's important the policy matters to me because it will make the air pollution worse if there is a ton of smoke and cars already. That's from Pete. This policy matters to me because I believe that smoking shouldn't be allowed in public because not only does it disturb the public, but would affect many children. People should stay away at least 20 feet from all people smoking. And that's Terry. Let's see, Katie says, because smoking can cause cancer to people who do it and others around the smokers. And let's see, I have another here. It says, in my opinion, I feel that drugs or smoking should be restricted. This policy should be strictly enforced. John's talking about that. And then finally, Sally says, people should not smoke in Solvang because it is bad for their lungs and can lead to cancer. It can also lead to others smoking, which I thought was an interesting concept of which we've talked about here before, where when things become the norm, then our young people feel that they're safe and it's all right. So, so that young lady had kind of captured that thought. There's quite a few more. They're all talking about the health issues. But I really do appreciate the fact that that you are strongly considering making Solvang smoke-free. You will be the highlight of the county, and we would be very honored to have that be a part of our community here. And finally, I'd just like to say that the things that happen here at the City Council and within our city ordinances really do matter to our youth. They're consumers here, they're the future, and these matters are important to them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. You've been put forth a lot of effort to make sure this happens, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Primo.
Mayor, members of the City Council, Primo Castro, Government Relations Director for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, in strong support of this policy. First reading, we're very excited about what the council, what the city is actually doing to promote smoke-free policies in the Santa Ynez Valley. We know that it takes a lot of effort. We know, what it means to, push this out there. But as I mentioned last time, you're becoming a leader, and in this region, we want to see strong, civic-minded individuals come forward. Mary was talking about some of the kids and their policies and the ways that they're thinking. We're seeing that a lot of the that the big tobacco industry is targeting our children and stuff. So these policies make it right. We want to make sure that we're sending the right message, as I mentioned. The American Cancer Society is working strongly with our partners in Santa Barbara and in the region to make sure that that we have a better partnership with you all, and we hope that this is one of many policies that health-related policies to come for future generations to come and stuff. So thank you very much.
We expect to see the grades on a report card go.
Of course.
Up. Okay. Thank you for that. I have no other speaker slips. Does anybody wish to speak now at public comment time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for council comments and requests. And Neil, would you like to start, please?
Yeah, just want to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting and thank everybody for all their comments tonight. Thank you.
Karen?
Again, I'd like to welcome everyone for coming to the meeting, and wanted to just announce that today I attended the Santa Ynez Chumash Museum and Cultural Center debut. Absolutely fantastic presentation. Curators from our international and national museums from Washington, D.C., and just looking forward to a really, really nice cultural center and project that will be starting. And they've been planning this. It's been in the making for almost 14 years now, and we're finally going to see it underway. And I think it'll bring a lot of arts, culture, and interest to the valley.
Ryan?
No real comments, but I guess I'm just curious if there's anything we should consider bringing on the agenda to address some of the concerns about the mercantile project that we have expressed
we
here.
can discuss that, yeah.
Yeah.
During, we can discuss that later, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Joni?
I was also at that presentation by the Chumash tribe, and it's going to be quite a spectacular educational area, I think, in the valley. And they are trying to collect artifacts from all over the world that people have taken that are Chumash. So it'll be interesting to see if they succeed. It's a tough thing to do, to get your history back. Today I was a street walker. I walked early this morning, I walked the city of Solvang business area. And there were some new shops that I had not been in. So it was really kind of an eye-opening experience for me. It was cold and drippy, but everybody had a smile on their faces when I walked into the stores. Solvang really is a very special little town. It is priceless to me. And the best part of this last week is the boys in blue, the Dodgers, are in the World Series. Hallelujah. Now maybe they'll win this time. That's all I have to say.
I want to thank Tracy for the grape stomp. I think that turned out to be a very successful afternoon, and good luck on it next year too. I also wanted to bring the attention, before the grape stomp, we had an entourage of 35 people from the Tournament of Roses parade. They were here with their 7 princesses for a retreat on how to be a princess and a possible queen. And we welcomed them at the gazebo, presented them with city pins, and sent them on their way. But what was really exciting was these 7 princesses are high school girls, and with their entourage, the president of the Tournament of Roses parade, this retreat that they have annually has been taking place on Balboa Island. And the owner of the property on Balboa Island passed away, so that function had to move somewhere, and they remembered Solvang. There's so many people that come to Solvang, they thought they'd give it a try, and they were at the Alisal Ranch for several days as part of their retreat. And they indicated that they'll be back. So as I gave them city pins, I reminded the girls that these pins are important and they're formal, that they should wear them on their gowns during the parade. So we hope that we'll be recognized that way. So it was a great morning to spend with those girls. Regarding the mercantile, what can we do regarding the lighting and these parking complaints and those sorts of things?
Well, as far as direction to staff, you give staff direction to see if there's any of the municipal code that is being violated, if there's any of the conditions of approval of the project that are being violated, and take a look and see if there's enforcement actions that can be taken. As far as bringing up the project again and imposing additional conditions, that horse may have left the barn at this point, because the project's fully entitled, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. And those types of actions, it would require an additional development application.
If pressed, could someone appeal to the council for some relief, or is there any way that we can do anything about it, being that they're already been conditioned and approved by the building and permitting?
Well,
and
we can write them a letter and request that they turn the lighting down or off, and we can make that request. There's not going to be any teeth behind it,
right? But
that request could be made. At the concern of the surrounding properties, we can do that at a minimum.
Okay,
get that started.
And then ask compliance to check in to see that there's no violations and so forth, which I doubt there would be at this time. But
right, yeah. And we definitely can have staff follow up on that part.
Well, thank you. Okay, all right. We have received no correspondence, so we'll go on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull any items off the consent calendar?
Yes, I'd like to pull item E, maintenance agreement, Mercantile State Highway right-of-way landscaping for the adoption of resolution number 18th. The reason being is because I'd like to get a little more information, having listened to a number of residents here in the valley that are being directly affected by the mercantile. I'd like to kind of go over that and get a little more detail.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else?
Yes, I'd like our sheriff, did he leave? No, he's here, to explain the new sheriff's report, if you can, or if you're familiar with it. There's a new format to the sheriff's report. Okay, well, maybe next time.
We can get back to you on that.
Yeah, maybe next time we can go through it and see.
We're still providing the one that Charlie does, your community resource deputy, but
right.
They also have the one from contracts that's separate. So
right.
we'll try to make those come together.
Right, and some of them are not lining up. There's something over here that doesn't appear over here, and vice versa. So I'm just curious how we get to these numbers, et cetera. So next time, though, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else that you'd like to pull? With that, let's take a look at 4C then, or 4E. Staff report.
Item 4E, maintenance agreement, the Mercantile State Highway right-of-way landscaping.
Alrighty. Good evening, Mayor Richardson and council members. Matt Vanderlinden, your Public Works Director and City Engineer. So just briefly, Caltrans few months ago sort of dropped a bomb on us. The developer had completed the engineering work for the curb and gutter and sidewalk improvements along Mission Drive there, along the that south frontage of the property. And Caltrans became aware that they were going to put some landscaping behind the sidewalk. So you may be able to visualize right now from the edge of the pavement up of Mission Drive up to the parking lot, there's that slope that goes up, and there's about a half a dozen or so trees along there. And then the landscaping is mostly just low type bushes and a drip irrigation system. So about the bottom 25% of that slope is within the Caltrans right-of-way. And so there's this little strip of landscaping behind the proposed sidewalk and the parking lot. There's this little strip right behind that sidewalk that is within Caltrans right-of-way. So that property line or that right-of-way line just falls just up the slope just a little bit from the bottom. And Caltrans has started implementing a new policy where they do not any longer want to enter into maintenance agreements with private property owners. So they will with public agencies, but not with private property owners. So the developer has been processing his plans with Caltrans to get his encroachment permit to begin the construction of these improvements, these frontage improvements. But that came to a halt because Caltrans said, hey, no, we'll only issue you the encroachment permit if we have a resolution from the city saying the city will take responsibility for the maintenance of the landscaping and the drip irrigation system on that little strip at the bottom of the slope between the back of the sidewalk and it varies from like 3 to 5 feet, this little strip. Caltrans at the same time said, hey, we've done this before, it is a new policy, but what you can do is go to the developer and then basically transfer that responsibility from the city back onto the developer. But that way, Caltrans, in the encroachment permit, the responsibility is on the city, but as presented in the staff report, there's a parallel agreement between the city and the developer is fully willing and prepared to take full responsibility for that. I mean, as you can imagine, it's the bottom 25% of that slope, so the drip system and the landscaping is all going to be the same for the whole slope. So it's just going to be low-lying bushes or low-growing bushes and wood chips and mulch and a drip system. The trees are all outside of the Caltrans right-of-way on the private property, so they're not actually part of it. So we're kind of, I guess, we're being held hostage by Caltrans to do this resolution if they're going to issue the encroachment permit to the developer. So, but with this agreement, we feel comfortable. Staff feels comfortable. We feel there's really no risk to the city. Absolute worst case, if the developer weren't to maintain it or anything, we could remove the bushes, put wood and the drip irrigation system, put wood chips, and be done. And then, just like in other parts of the city, if there's weed abatement or something that is required, our code enforcement department would get involved and issue letters and follow up like that. So we feel like there's really no risk to the city. The agreement covers all this. And again, the developer is fully prepared to maintain it and take care of it as part of the overall landscaping along that frontage. So we don't see any undue risks to the city or anything like that.
Any questions? Karen, did you have some questions?
No, I'm just my comment because I was approving the landscaping for this particular project. Was a long process and it was really well thought out, and we had very good input from individuals who know an awful lot about plants and native plants. So I just wanted to make sure that we would still be able to maintain that look that was originally approved.
That is correct. That is correct. None of this will change any of the planning and BAR approved landscaping plans or anything like that for that frontage.
That's the existing plans westward from the bus stop. All those bushes are going to remain as is. They're going to be removing.
They're gonna, well, any ones that look kind of shabby or whatever, they'll remove, but the ones that are healthy, they'll remain, and they're planning to infill with additional similar bushes to kind of fill it in a little bit so it doesn't look so barren.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. We don't have to bring this to the public because we did that before as a part of our public comment time. So with that, can I have a motion accepting the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to accept it.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I just have one question.
Sure.
In the smoking ordinance, did we assign any place in the city where people actually can smoke?
Parking lots and streets.
Okay.
That's in the downtown. Outside of the downtown,
right.
then you.
Okay.
Those
And
are
there will be ash cans.
Yeah, we're going to order 20 of those, and we'll start with that and see the best placement for those. So we'll
I
start.
just want to make sure that the public understands that we are going to be smoking in the parking lots. And I don't mean we, but we can. But we can.
We won't be prohibiting it. Yes.
Right.
Are they ash cans / trash cans or just
No, we're
ash
going to
cans?
just go with a single stanchion that's just for cigarette butts.
Got it.
Yeah.
And do we have any like aesthetic choices over these things, or?
It's really just a bronze tube. I mean, it's
Okay.
not too obtrusive. We think it'll serve the purpose without.
So bronze looking tube.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we're looking at. I mean, if you'd like us to bring back or take it to the BR, we could. We're trying to expedite getting something in just to have it in place.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Zimmerman,
Yes.
Waite,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Toussaint,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes, and that passes with a 5-0.
Item 5, Solvang Park improvements.
Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Fred Lagerman with Solvang Parks and Recreation. I'm here to talk to you about two, in particular, Solvang Park improvements. As you remember, last month, I came to discuss putting in a new proposed shade structure over at Solvang Park to replace the 3 Maytin trees. After council discussion, I was directed to take the proposal back to the Board of Architectural Review for their input and review. I did so on October 11th, and the board was given 5 different proposals. They discussed all 5 and decided on one in particular, which is proposal number 3, which you have in your packet. They also discussed the types of various materials that could be used, metal, wood, fabric, etc. They ultimately selected 3 single post umbrellas, but as you can see in your diagram there, they're not your typical backyard round umbrella, but more pyramidical in nature. They also selected 2 colors, a tan or 2 various shades of red, a cayenne and a cherry red. The umbrella comes in 3 various sizes, starting at 10 by 10 and going up to 14 by 14. They preferred the larger size as their best choice. And it should be noted that size umbrella would offer about 7 feet of shade in either direction, south or north. That would provide pretty decent shade over the current benches that reside on the deck, but it would not provide direct shade over the picnic tables. Most of that shade currently comes from the trees that back along the alley. The entry height of the umbrella is 8 foot, so a standard ceiling height, so that'd be plenty of clearance. And the conceptual drawing that you have is just something staff did in-house, so it's not exactly to scale, but the small blue drawing down is from the actual shade structure manufacturer, so it gives you a kind of a bird's eye view of the shape. The second improvement involves the ADA accessible ramp, which was proposed about 4 years ago at the Solvang Park gazebo. The Vikings were interested in cooperating with the city to have that ramp installed, and so after several meetings and several discussions of various things that we could do back there, including various switchback ramps and external elevator lift, it was decided last fall to go out to have a professional designer a draftsman, excuse me, design and engineer a ramp. In February of this year, it was completed, given to the Vikings. They took it to bid, and the bids came out more than they expected. They had 2 local bidders. So city manager and myself recently met with them, and it was discussed on having the project be a cooperative one, and the city would co-fund the ramp for $30,000, of which we already have in our current budget. We've been holding over for a couple of years now to put towards park improvements in general. It should be also noted that if the project were to move forward with the Vikings, they originally, I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago, when they came to council to discuss doing something over at Centennial Plaza and having their name on that plaza, they would like in turn to do the same here, although the exact type of signage, location, or verbiage has not been primarily discussed as of yet. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
Tell me about the material of the umbrellas.
The material is a strong fabric, commercial fabric that you see in business districts, etc.
Like Sunbrella?
Probably even considerably thicker than that.
And who's going to determine the color?
Bar gave you 2 options. I guess the 5 of you.
Well, maybe BAR should choose the colors. They're the ones that pick the 2 colors? Okay.
They offered
There
to.
were 3.
They seemed to have at least a consensus on the tan, but 2 different type of reds were thrown out.
Okay.
Having discussed it amongst the public, some tan seems to be the leading.
I think so,
Yeah,
too.
red would tend to bleach.
Yeah, red doesn't do well in the sun.
Any other comments?
I just have one more comment. I do not think it should be called the Viking Pavilion. I think they should be given credit for the ramp, but I think making it the Viking.
I'm just having difficulty combining these 2 projects because the first project had to do with replacing the trees and putting up shade, and now we have the Viking Pavilion thrown into this. So I think we should table the whole Viking Pavilion idea and give that further thought and concentrate on the immediate need for shading that we had originally met for and budgeted for.
Any
we could also just bifurcate it. And
yeah, we can bifurcate it, but do we want to bifurcate it? That's the question.
I would have liked to have seen some drawings of what the ramp's going to look like.
Okay, so let's table the Viking Charities portion of that, and now we'll speak about the umbrellas in particular now. So, any other comments? With that, thank you, Fred. With that, we'll go to the public for public comment. Does the public have any comments on this? I have no speaker slips. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Who would like to start the discussion? Don't be bashful. Well, let me start it this way then. The BAR's recommendation and suggestion are the umbrellas. Do we want to accept their suggestion? Yes or no?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I do too.
Then can I have a motion?
So I'll move that we accept as is with the tan color.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
We'll also need an action on the budget appropriation.
That's on. That's part of the motion.
So we'll add and accept the $30,000 budget adjustment.
It would be
50.
The shade structure was 50. The gazebo was 30. But you've tabled
okay,
the gazebo.
So the 50,000.
Oh yeah, that's so. It's 1 and 2 portions 1 and 2 of the staff recommendation. Part 3 will be tabled. Understood?
Yep.
Okay. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Toussaint?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Jamison?
Yes.
Waite?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes, that portion of that passes 5-0. Now let's talk about the ADA ramp. We're we agreed to table that for further discussion?
Well, I think you'd like to see some drawings and things. We
Right.
can definitely bring that back. And then the concept of if they would like to name it, what that involves. We can bring back an item for that.
Yeah, I mean, has the BAR looked at the design for the ADA ramp?
It has not gone before the BA.
Yeah, I think that's very
It's a
important for them
brick-
to take
It's
a
a
look at
brick
that.
similar to what's out there. We were just matching that, but we'll bring that back before the council.
Okay.
Also.
Thank you very much. On to item 6.
Item 6, medical cannabis dispensary resolution.
Staff report.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, back in August, the council adopted an ordinance allowing medical cannabis dispensaries within the C3 zone in the city of Solvang. That ordinance provided for a limitation on the number of dispensaries to be determined by city council resolution. Because the C3 zone is limited to 2 parcels, one with having a fully operating lumberyard, realistically, there's only one property that would have the potential for operation of a medical cannabis dispensary. Staff has received approximately 8 inquiries on the application process, and we were told by the property managers that they've had several dozens inquiries on leasing the property. So many potential applicants have expressed concern regarding the economic viability of a strictly medicinal retail storefront due to costs associated with product and compliance. However, a case could also be made that a competitive market is best for the consumers. We're still working on the proposed application process, but it would require, the intention is that it would require submittal of a land use clearance and regulatory permit application during a dedicated application acceptance time period, a qualification process, and a lottery selection. And the staff is still working with HDL on the cost recovery portion. A lot of the pieces have to be in place as to how deep we're going to go into the selection process, to how much staff time will be associated with that. So that's not been completed yet. So at this time, what we're looking for is how many would be willing to be accepted into this C3. And so if you choose to pick a number, we would then adopt that by resolution, and then we would have that to go forward as we move with our finalization of the permit process.
Questions of staff report.
I'd like to know what the size of the properties are. How big is the one where the castle is and the acreage of Nielsen's building material?
We checked on the castle at 17,000 square feet.
Is that the building?
The building. I think it's about an acre, if I recollect. 1.02. I don't have the information on the lumber, Nielsen's lumber. The zoning's odd because it it's not the full parcel.
Right.
So it's just the front section of it. So we didn't do the number on that. No, the lumberyard. How big the lumberyard was. So I don't have the size on that one.
Oh, I don't want to disregard the possibility that they may want to put something in there and build something there.
Yeah, this wouldn't prohibit them from doing that. This would just limit how many dispensaries you're going to be allowing.
Okay.
On either parcel.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then we'll take it to the public for comment. I have no speaker slips. Does anybody in the public wish to comment on this item?
Interesting.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Who would like to start?
I actually would like to take an inaction on this for a couple of reasons. One being that we haven't gone through a full vetting process of possible candidates or businesses. We haven't really nailed that down yet. The second is that the Planning Commission gave us a suggested area for the dispensaries. So that's not put in stone, and I really think that we still have some more work to do in researching the whole process. The third reason that I'd like to just sit back and take a look at this is I'd like to hear more from our consultants on it.
Now, the C3 zone, isn't that in an ordinance? So we can't really change that unless we bring the ordinance back.
Right.
Okay.
And we don't currently have a consultant on anything other than the cost recovery. We're in the process of staff preparing the documentation for the application process. So the consultant has been retained for a very limited purpose of just recovering the costs involved in the process.
Okay, so are we in line to have consultants that are going to help us vet the applicants?
Short answer is no. That's not something they've been retained to do.
All right.
I'd like to hear from the people that went up to Grover Beach and what they saw up there and how Grover Beach is handling their situation, because I think they're light years ahead of us.
Well, I can probably talk to it, and Lisa and Holly's here as well. We made a trip up to the Grover Beach dispensaries with their planning staff a couple weeks ago, looked at the facilities, looked at a number of issues relating to their application process, their security plans, and so on. And they are significantly further ahead for perhaps obvious reasons. They've been doing it a little bit longer, but they gave us a whole host of ideas as to what we would be looking for. I was more concerned and focused on the security issues, how we set those up for the operating plans for any dispensaries, the physical security of the locations and so on. But they did have some comments regarding the application process and vetting the various applications on. As far as the physical structure, very clean, very straightforward. You wouldn't know it from another type of business just walking by on the outside. At least one of them actually had upgraded the neighborhood fairly significantly with their exterior landscaping and so on. So it looked like a positive addition to the particular neighborhoods that they were located in. Those are kind of very general comments. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you might have.
What's the population of Grover Beach?
Probably about 10,000, if I'm not mistaken.
And how many providers do they have?
They currently have 2 open dispensaries, but they have applications for quite a bit of additional space going in, both for cultivation and manufacture and so on. But as far as storefront, I believe it's only 2.
Do they have a limit of how many storefronts they're going to have?
Actually, Grover Beach, as soon as they passed their medical cannabis ordinance, they came right back and approved recreational cannabis, and they allowed for up to 10 dispensaries. All now have which the 2 that existed immediately went to recreational and medical, and the others are proposed to be recreational and medical as well.
Holly, would you give us your impressions?
I would have to echo Dave's observations of this. It was revealing to, I think, all of us to see, first of all, the high level of security measures that they pursue when operating this kind of business. It's not only for the physical plant of the stores, but it's for the customers. Actually, the customers would need to submit IDs, and they kept all this in a database, and they were highly organized when it came to how they handle their product, how they store it at night, and they were very welcoming of questions, which was helpful. The planning director there has been working for several years to make this happen. They had a tax initiative on a ballot in 2016, I believe it was. So it's taken them several years to go from that phase of growing that type of business to now opening up these dispensaries, and the ones that were both medicinal and recreational just became legal about 2 months ago. So it's relatively new. They've made a fair amount of money, which was impressive to us, of course. But it's not all about money. It's about a lot of other things. So we all in all, there's a lot. I think there are some good operations out there, some professionally run operations. I was impressed by the description of the vetting process for choosing just the among a field of candidates, the types of businesses you want in your city. There's a lot of background checks. There's audits, and again, this is a cash-only business at this time. They're working their way around that, but that poses some challenges too. So,
did you spend much time there? One of the concerns I have is traffic in the C3 zone. Did you notice any congestion or
Not really.
activity for people rushing in?
No, we were there between 3 and 5 on a Friday.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be a high time, so to speak, for that kind of activity. But there was no, that it was not really in evidence. I mean, there was the first one was fairly busy. There was a wide range of people coming in to review the product and make purchases. So
Now, they have grow areas in their community, right?
I don't recall.
They're in the process of working that out. There's a proposal somewhere north of 100,000 square feet of interior cultivation. That has not been approved yet, but it will be in the same general zone as the other the storefront dispensaries. There are also some manufacturing opportunities that are being looked at as well, not just the cultivation, but actually the processing and manufacture of the products for the retail dispensaries.
So the retail dispensaries are just retail. They are not creating the product.
Well, they're in the process of, they call it vertical integration. That's where they're able to become profitable, is to reduce the number of opportunities or requirements of them purchasing or obtaining their materials from outside. So the second dispensary that we looked at is in the process of developing an extraction facility, and in terms of the physical infrastructure of it, they really know what they're doing. I mean, the machinery and the construction standards for the building that they're proposing to do it. They call it non-volatile extraction, so they'd be using carbon dioxide instead of volatile, something like butane. So they're in the process of doing that. Their regulatory structure in Grover Beach is significantly more developed because they are allowing recreational, and they are trying to make themselves kind of the focus of San Luis Obispo County at this point. They seem very proactive, very welcoming to the businesses at the city level, and as Holly says, there's a fair amount of money coming into the city for it.
I just want to make sure that these businesses are put in the right place in the C3 zone that was suggested by the Planning Commission. I just want to be very thorough in making sure that that is absolutely the right place for this. And I know the zoning allows for it. I mean, I have no question with the security and how the businesses are set up. I think there is confusion with the public that they feel that these cannabis dispensaries are going to be grow houses, and that people will be smelling cannabis 4 miles around. And so I just need the public to understand that is not the case.
Well, one of the things that was impressive about both of the dispensaries that we visited is they have what's kind of an airlock system where you have to go through one locked door, be in an interim area, and then another locked door. And it's a security measure, but it also controls the smell, quite frankly. And you walk into the initial area, there's no smell at all. When you walk into the storefront area, yes, you could smell the various products that are available there, but you would not be able to tell just walking past the building at all. They had ventilation for that, and it was very sophisticated. The second one that we went to had one of the more modern types of product presentation. I mean, it was almost like walking into an Apple store in terms of the simplicity of the product demonstration, but they had some very sophisticated point of sale types of displays that I've never seen in any kind of retail at all. So they are very professional at what they do, and we would anticipate that dispensary coming to Solvang would exhibit the same type of professionalism.
Are there any other comments? Neil?
Yeah, I think that the properties identified fit the profile for this. I mean, where they're located and it being zone C3. And there's only 2 parcels. It'd be hard to only put, Solvang probably only needs 1 dispensary, but the idea of just having 1 doesn't seem fair. And I think that, I don't know, the number that I have in my head is like maybe 2 or 3. And then the property owners can kind of figure it out. Maybe there's only, actually ends up being 2, and then there's 1 that's possible in the future for whatever future rezoning or something like this. So I'd like to make the motion to allow 3 dispensaries in the city of Solvang.
Yeah, there's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Are you going to just limit it to, how are you going to limit it? Are you going to say 1 on one and 2 on the other, or 3 and 0, or how are we going to do that?
I think that's probably going to be handled by the application process. We'll have restrictions as to the operations, and the so that would remain to be seen as far as how that will shake out from the applications. I think imposing that by resolution is going to, I think, unduly hamstring the application process if we set it in stone that way. We have a zone where they're allowed. Now you're being asked to just set a number for that zone.
So there's a possibility then that if we had 3, all 3 would be on the same parcel.
Theoretically possible. The market economics probably dictate strongly against that, though.
I think all these people have gone to Oregon and studied their product up there.
I will say
They
this,
have really
both of
snappy
the
things up
managers
there.
that we spoke to, I mean, you would have thought they were an MBA student.
Mhm.
They were extremely savvy about their business. They were extremely savvy about their product margins, their sourcing, and both of them that we spoke to had a strong commitment to sourcing locally, using local businesses and keeping the money locally in the community.
Very interesting.
I know that we already had public comment, but I do see somebody out there that seems like she may want to speak.
I'm a tourist. Can I speak to this issue?
Yes, yeah, I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Okay, great. So my name is Mary Garvey, and I am from Los Angeles. And hearing this conversation, the primary question that occurs to me is, are you providing a medical marijuana service for your citizens and providing them access to treat their issues that they need? Or are you trying to provide an open dispensary for people to participate in recreational marijuana, or people coming here to, I mean, it's legal in California, but I think there's a big difference between having it's a small town, having 1 dispensary, 1 or 2 dispensaries for people who are in need of medical marijuana and need those services, as opposed to, providing open thing. And when you're talking about people who are MBA, it's a money-making business. Everybody knows it's a money-making business. And when you're talking about having MBAs sitting there talking about that this is going to make money for the community, yeah, if you want to do that, if you want to be an open community that's going to provide multiple dispensaries, yes, you're going to have that. But I think the fundamental question is, are you providing a service for your citizens, or are you a money-making opportunity? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table.
Well, we need to answer a question. We have approved medical facilities, not recreational, at this point in time.
There's a motion on the floor for 3
I don't
dispensaries.
believe there was a second.
I'm sorry? That's what I said. There's no second? Then the motion dies for lack of a second. Any other comments?
I think one of the things I'm concerned with is we're deciding the number of dispensaries right now, and you have, I read in here that we have landlord that's now getting, people inquiring about leasing out that property. I was expecting to get more of a vetting process, an application process for us to begin reviewing. So I'm kind of just worried that this is a little bit cart before the horse.
Council members, the reason that we brought this item forward is because we are modeling our vetting and application process after Grover Beaches. They had some issues with theirs that we definitely have learned from, and we won't be making that mistake that they had to experience. But in order for us to continue with HDL, doing the cost recovery portion, and to finalize our application process, we do need to know the number of dispensaries that we're going to be allowing. So that's why this was brought at this moment in time. I'm very confident that our application and vetting process is going to be our ordinance is written, to the quality that we have a checklist of submittals. We have a method by which we can disqualify applicants. So staff will do a pre-application process along with the Sheriff's Department, live scan and background checks. And at that point, we'll have a number of qualified applicants, and those we will choose by lottery the number of dispensaries that we will allow. And that's very important because it must be a lottery system to keep the city out of lawsuits.
So an example would be if we only permitted one medical dispensary, but we came out with 3 qualified applicants, then it's going to be...
we would still have a pool,
okay.
however many number of qualified applicants.
Well, I'm just saying, for example, if we came out with 3, 5, whatever it is,
correct,
the lottery system would then pick one that could then have right to go to the landlord to go and
correct,
obtain that spot.
So what staff is doing at this point in time is advising the landlord to potentially set up a lease with their most qualified tenant of their choosing, but to make sure that the lease is based on whether that they get that final award by the city to have the dispensary.
Okay.
Comments?
It's tough.
Shall we table it?
I'm inclined to go with the most conservative, which would just be allowing the one medical dispensary.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm going to offer a substitute motion. And I'll tell you why. My substitute motion is for 0. And the reason for 0 is the primary one is the voters of Solvang, by a slim margin, accepted marijuana in the city. It was 49 to 51 in change. It's really close. I've talked to many constituents in the valley, or in the city, that are totally opposed to a dispensary, period. The second reason is the medical properties of marijuana are in the CBD oil, or CBD portion of the plant. The part that gets you high, the THC, is not a medical, it doesn't do medically. It creates a high feeling. Maybe it relaxes people, but the object of the CBD oil for medicinal purposes is readily available. You can purchase it at Star Drug, and they will deliver. They sell it at the health food store in Buellton. You can get it at New Frontiers. All that's available in salves, lotions, and oils. So my motion, or my substitute motion, is for 0 dispensaries in the city. And I'm looking for a second. And I expected I wouldn't get a second. I expected that.
Well, Jim, I do believe that on your platform you did say that you were open to medical cannabis.
No, I said I would consider it, and I've considered it, and I've objected to it. I considered it at the vote of the ordinance. I considered it as not appropriate for the citizens. So my substitute motion dies for a lack of a second. Will you call the roll, please, on the original motion?
Councilmember Toussaint?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Waite?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
No, that passes with the 4-1. One dispensary. On to item 7.
Item 7, wastewater treatment plant upgrade, reimbursement of project expenses through bond proceeds.
Staff report.
I'm going to cover this since Sandra's at the CalPERS conference this week. So we put this on the agenda based on our bond counsel saying that as we move forward with the potential to purchase bonds or sell bonds for your upgrade to your wastewater treatment plant, if you have one of these resolutions in place, you're able then to, from that date of that resolution, any expenses could be potentially be reimbursed from those bond proceeds. So this is this does not obligate you to sell bonds or obligate you to do any projects. It just starts the clock for tracking expenses and whether they would be eligible for reimbursement through the bond sale. So if you have any questions, I can answer them, but it's just a basic resolution to start that that clock on that.
So the object is that we will, if the monies we spend in
studies,
pre-design and all that stuff
any of
will
that
be charged against the bond when the bond is issued.
You would have that option. With this resolution, you choose what you want to use those proceeds for. This would make those eligible. You may in fact want to use the existing reserves that you have or general fund reserves and not reimburse it out of that. But it does give you, it opens up your options for reimbursement on that.
Any other questions of the staff? Seeing none, we'll go to the public for public comment. Does anybody in the public have any comment regarding this issue? Wow, we got an audience, but nobody. This is all right. Back to the council for action. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. So we haven't really. I think the last meeting we came down to probably the two most likely designs that we would move forward with, and then we're going to work on coming back with finer combed
funding, and then also participation by the
right.
Los Olivos and Senes. Yeah.
In the meantime, I don't necessarily see any big expenditures going on right now.
Yeah, we don't anticipate that either. We just, this is just something that allows you to start that clock. If you would,
yeah.
We had if you had PACE do some more work on the evaluations, that would then qualify under this.
And right now we have about 10 million in the wastewater fund, 9 million.
Liquid asset, I think you got about 5 million. You have 10 million, but 4 of that is in.
But free or.
Yeah, the unrestricted is I think 4.5 million off the top of my head. I didn't bring that with me, but.
Okay.
That's unrestricted, but there's 10 million there.
Right.
Well, 10 of it is capital improvement. So your plant, you own that. Those are assets you can't sell. So they're not liquid.
Matt?
Oh, yes, thank you. I just thought I would add a couple comments. So basically, the critical path for us for either alternative 2 or alternative 3, that's the adding the clarifiers or converting the plant to the membrane plant and MBR plant. Both of those are going to require some additional land. And so that's the very first thing that we need to address. And so we're right on the verge of hiring a surveyor to prepare the grant deeds and for both alternatives. And then we've started conversations with the Alisal Ranch. I met last week with CJ Jackson and provided them with the follow-up letter today. So the critical path is the land acquisition, then the environmental work, and then begin the engineering design work. And once we begin the engineering design, somewhere along the point there also the city council is going to have to decide alternative 2 or 3. Then we begin the environmental work and then do the design work. So so all of those items, if the council so choose to, would be eligible to be covered by the bonds if we were to end up going that way. But this just leaves all your options open. So the land acquisition costs, the environmental work costs, and all those engineering costs, those costs could be lumped in and rolled into the bonds if we do go that way, and included in all that. So we'd initially cover those from our reserves or general fund or whatever. But by doing this, it gives you the option to roll those in and have the bonds replenish the reserves, the wastewater or the general fund reserves.
What kind of ballpark numbers are you talking about for that pre-construction work?
Probably 1.5 million.
$1.5 million.
Yeah, because the engineering work is going to be about $1 million. The land acquisition is going to be a few $100,000, maybe up to $400,000, something like that, and the environmental work is going to be close to $100,000.
I thought there were multiple options where we didn't have to do a land acquisition. Didn't we have options?
Like the membrane plant, I think, required less land acquisition, right? It could
Right,
be done within the
the
existing.
membrane plant requires just a little bit. If alternative one, which was like the worst that we really discourage and I think we've eliminated, that would not require any additional right-of-way or land acquisition.
Okay.
I was just going to say too, the land acquisition is really just a small amount of the total project,
Sure.
so it's not, you know.
The statement in here is that the issuer reasonably expects the debt obligation in an amount not expected to exceed 15 million.
Correct.
That's kind of a wide open, it could exceed, but we don't expect it to kind of thing, kind of statement.
Well, the staff's anticipating that the amount that we would bond for would be much less than that. I mean, the project, including the engineering and everything, I think is 15.3 million. So we have wastewater reserves. So I would imagine you'd want to suspend those and not use, bond for that and pay interest on that. And then San Ynez Community Services District, per our agreement already in place, they're going to have to share in the cost. So really the maximum we'd probably end up bonding for is about 10 million, but I just made it 15 just to be on the safe side, because we don't really know exactly what.
And even of the initial up to 1.3 million that you're talking about, is that that's still going to be partially contributed to from CSD?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
So.
And maybe Los Olivos and Ballard.
Yeah, but probably we are going to be in a position where the city council is going to need to make a decision, alternative 2 or 3, before we get any kind of final commitment from Los Olivos.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that they want to keep the door open. They want the option to be able to send their wastewater to Solvang, but they just aren't ready to make that decision. They want to do their due diligence, do some additional studying, and really look more closely at the true cost to build their own plant in Los Olivos and have big percolation ponds and all the land they have to purchase and all that, to just convince themselves which option for them is the best. But
will that impact our design thoughts? Is that whether or not, since they may or may not go in, we would have to plan for them coming in, and that would increase costs?
Well, just to remind you, so alternative 2 will have a capacity of 1.7 million gallons per day, and alternative 3 has the capacity of 2.0, yes. And right now we're just under 0.8 million gallons a day, so we'll have plenty of room for any additional growth in Solvang, any additional capacity San Ynez wants, any additional capacity for Los Olivos and Ballard, and a little bit to spare. So one thing you have to keep in mind, which is a little oddity, but in our permit, if the flow reaches 80% of the capacity of the plant, the regional board requires that we begin the planning stage for expanding the plant, because they don't want you to have an overflow or have a problem. So when you get to 80%, they want you to immediately start planning for, because most places the population continues to grow, and you're having to keep expanding plants and stuff over the years. But so that'd be like 1.6. Once we get to 1.6 MGD, unless we can show them and demonstrate, hey, there's not going to be any growth in San Ynez Valley or anything significant,
My thoughts were about the infrastructure impact. If they say, well, if we plan for them to come in, because to build the infrastructure, the piping and the pumping and all that kind of stuff to get it here, if we're going to be responsible for that, or we can just build and we'll have room enough for them to run a pipe in and dump.
Yeah, if we proceed with alternative 2 or 3, everything will be completely covered as far as the wastewater treatment plant. It'll be their responsibility to get their wastewater to us, to the Fjord lift station. And so depending on the timing, eventually we're going to have to upgrade and expand the Fjord lift station. But because the lift station's designed to match the capacity of the plant right now, the 1.5 MGD, so and we're only at 0.8. So, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't say exactly, but it's not likely that we're going to need to upgrade the fjord lift station after we upgrade the wastewater treatment plant for another 10 years, unless there's like crazy development, which I don't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? Because
Gotcha,
we're at
right.
just under 0.8, and we can go all the way to 1.5. Well, we'd want to start planning a little bit before then, but we can go up to like 1.3, let's say, MGD, and then we want to start planning to upgrade the lift station. Okay. And everybody who's sending waste there would have to share in the cost based on the agreements that we all would have in place and stuff. Just like the agreement we have in place right now with the San Ynez Community Service District.
Thank you. Is there any questions?
I just have a question, Matt. We're taking into consideration ADUs that might come along our way in the city of Solvang?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why we like the alternative 2 and 3. You know, really, alternative 3 is the staff's preferred alternative, but because it gives you that little bit of
cushion.
Buffer, yeah, for things unforeseen, you know, future things.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
I did look up the CAFR while Matt was talking. We have $4 million. You had at the end of last fiscal year, you had $4 million in unrestricted in wastewater.
Oh, okay. So, do we want to consider the staff recommendation? I'll make a motion that we went to the public already for comment. There was no comment, so I'll make a motion that we accept the staff recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Richardson?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmerman?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Toussaint?
No.
Wait?
No.
And that passes with a 3-2 vote. On to item 8.
Item 8, Mission and 5th Street Underground Utility District, additional Rule 20 credits needed.
Yeah. Just today, just tonight.
Staff report.
Right. Well, I have the unfortunate job of conveying to you not the most pleasant news or information. So our Mission and 5th Underground Utility District project actually started 5.5 years ago when PG&E approached the city. I think they were out doing some inspections or something on their facilities, and they noticed all these power lines going over. Well, there's a lot of power lines at that intersection as the entrance to the city, and they noticed power lines going over the roofs of a few of the businesses there, high power lines going right across there. So anyway, 5.5 years ago, they approached the city. We began the process. The city council, shortly after that, we looked at a few different locations within the city where these Rule 20A undergrounding funds could be utilized. There's 2 or 3 areas that they could be utilized, but that intersection was determined to be the top priority, and the city council directed staff to move forward with the agreements and everything with PG&E. So all that happened. We had to go through a process to create the underground district and create a boundary of the properties that would be included in that underground district. And then after about 3.5 years, a new PG&E had a staff change, that a new manager over this program, and they were getting ready to begin the engineering process and some of the first steps to move forward. And they notified us that, hey, we're way short on credits. And so we went through the process 1.5 years ago of acquiring additional credits to do the project. Since that time, so in the last 1.5 to 2 years, PG&E just this summer completed or finished all the engineering work for the project, so they have their plans and specifications all completed. They did a final updated cost estimate, and they came back and told us that, hey, we're sorry, but you know, construction costs have been going up, economy's good, contractors are busy. PG&E, just like the city, pays prevailing wage rates for all their work. And anyway, they told us that their estimate, including contingency, was $2.4 million, when previously it was $1.2 million. So in order for them to proceed further and to basically, you know, they're basically very close to being ready to put the project out to bid. We have to secure an easement and a little bit of coordination with Frontier, and they'll be ready to go put the project out to bid. But we don't have the necessary credits. So as we had done before, we talked to the PG&E staff. We asked them, hey, do you know anybody that's has credits that they'd be interested to sell? And they let us know about Kings County. So we contacted them, and we were able to negotiate a price of 35 cents per credit, which is actually better than the deal we got from the county. We had tried to negotiate with the county for a lower price on those credits that we purchased from Santa Barbara County, but they stuck with their 50 cents per credit. But we were able to, again, negotiate with Kings County for a price of 35 cents per credit. So, so that's where we're at. We need 1.2 million in additional credits to proceed with the project. And I was just going to mention that once we started this project, we also shortly after we had began this project back 5.5 years ago, we identified another project, which was the 5th Street Sidewalk Project. And the idea was we've been doing all the scheduling, and we secured grant funding for the 5th Street Sidewalk Project. And the idea was once the undergrounding work occurred, then we'd go in. There's a few poles that would be removed out of the way, and we could finish this 5th Street Sidewalk Project and not have to deal with those poles, you know, obstructing the sidewalk and creating complications for the project. So we are able to, we could, if the City Council doesn't want to pursue the Mission 5th Undergrounding Project and spend the money for those credits, we could proceed with the 5th Street Sidewalk Project and just basically cancel the Mission 5th Undergrounding Project. However, that'll add a little bit of cost and complication because those poles will have to be relocated. The poles that are planned to be removed with the undergrounding project. But if we don't proceed with that, we still could do the sidewalk project, but it's going to create some complications and additional cost and coordination to have a few, there's I think 3 or 4 poles that would have to be relocated. So we'd have to coordinate that with PG&E, and there'd be costs to that. But so I kind of thought that might be a question you have, so I wanted to mention that. So basically, we're looking for direction. Do you want us to, does the City Council want to approve a budget adjustment and spend the money for the additional credits and proceed with the undergrounding project? We only earn 20,000 credits a year, so it takes 60 years to earn, I know it's kind of ridiculous, but to earn 1.2 million in credits. So, you know, I have to tell you, I mean, when PG&E told me this, I just like, you got to be kidding. I'm like, we just went through this. You told us, you know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that we needed more. We got them, and now it's double. I'm like, anyway. So obviously, I was really disappointed and frustrated, and our staff was that's working on this. But yeah, they said we're really sorry, but that's what we're coming up with, and so the options are use general fund reserves, do a budget adjustment, purchase the additional credits, proceed with the project. If we did purchase those credits, the construction would happen this spring, and like I said, because they're pretty close to being ready to go out to bid, or you can direct staff, nope, we don't want to spend the money to do that, just cancel the project and move forward with the 5th Street sidewalk project and just relocate the poles that are in the way. I think the staff report indicates that would be incur additional costs. I want to say it was 50,000. Yeah.
So so it costs $420,000 to get 1.2 million credits, and what does 1.2 million credits get us? Like, what is that? What is that? Is that like money? Is that dollars? Like equate to dollars?
Yeah, it does somewhat equate to dollars. When PG&E does their cost estimates, using dollars, they go $1 per credit.
So what do we need? We need 1.2 million and 1.2 million credits. $1.2 million and 1.2 million credits to get the job done?
No, we need 1.2 million credits, which in Caltrans,
it's like airline miles. The day you want to use them.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
That's right.
Yeah, so in PG&E's accounting, they consider a credit worth $1 of construction.
But we can only use 1 credit for every dollar we spend? Is that what you said?
No, we're buying credits at 35 cents on the dollar.
Okay, so we could either give them 2 million cash or 2 million credits. Okay. Yeah.
But
exactly,
Neil, what they're doing is other agencies that have accrued these credits, if they want the cash, then we can buy the credits off of them either for a dollar for dollar or at a discounted rate.
35 cents on the dollar.
So originally when this came about, we got them for 50 cents on the dollar.
So from Santa Barbara.
Right.
So we should move forward with it, right?
But what you're saying is exactly correct. We can either give them 1.2 million in credits, which we can spend $420,000 and get them from King County, or we can pay cash the balance.
No, we just
they do allow that, but that's obviously doesn't make any sense. So.
Any other questions to staff? Staff report.
And all the poles that would be underground are identified in the map that's in
the added cost of moving those 3 poles to do the sidewalk project. What kind of estimate have you got for that?
The upper end probably like $70,000.
Okay, so what we can say is, we can compare $425,000 to do the job to $70,000 to do the sidewalks. No. More or less.
Well,
I think we're being taken, with PG&E, and I'm really disappointed, and because we started a long time ago to resolve this, either they're dragging their feet or I don't think we drug our feet, and I really think that we ought to just, if they've spent money to go through this thing, I think they ought to eat it. So I'd recommend that we just bow out, put the sidewalks in, move the poles, sell our the credits that we bought from Santa Barbara County, sell them back to Santa Barbara County or somewhere else, and get out of the undergrounding business.
So do we have a total of 550,000 credits total right now?
Right now we have 1.2 million in credits. But we need 1.2 million.
And we paid.
more.
And how many did we have to buy from Santa Barbara City?
550,000.
We bought it 550
for $275,000. That's what we did in 2016.
Right. So we're into
we can
it.
get the job done for less by buying these credits from someone. Why wouldn't we do it?
Well, my concern,
done correctly. I mean,
my concern would also be we have a goal here to find a way to fund stormwater management without increasing people's water and sewer rates. We have dramatically rising CalPERS liabilities and cost, and we also have a very expensive wastewater treatment plant to pay for. And at some point, and especially in the current budget that was just approved, where expenses are far exceeding revenues, you got to start cutting the knees off on the spending.
And I know there are other projects that would benefit more for that $400,000 than to underground some cables.
Personally, I think I'd rather table this and wait. I mean, we're already seeing, this entity right here is willing to sell it for 35 cents on the dollar. Maybe our buy point is 10 cents on the dollar, but there's going to be a lot of people looking for cash, a lot of agencies looking for cash, especially as these CalPERS payments really start setting in. Everyone feels cash strapped.
I mean, I can go with that because otherwise we're going to be in the same position on the other end of the stick there. We're going to be selling these credits for 10 cents or we're taking a loss on the 50 cents we spent. So then we're looking at a $400,000 loss there. So which way do you want to take it?
We'll have our credits on the market, just like unless we can convince Santa Barbara County to take them back, Santa Barbara City, take them back.
No. They
Have you approached them with that?
They were eager to sell them. Okay.
The reason entities sell them is because it takes, as Matt said, so long to build up enough credits to do a project. No, most entities never do a project. And so they have this, and it's not really cash, it's credits within PG&E. So you can't use them for anything but an undergrounding project.
Right. Yeah,
so to sell them is a good way to do it. So I can guarantee you Santa Barbara County doesn't want them back.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
But we could go out and see if anybody, you know, test a
Well-
few other markets and see if there's anybody willing to go lower. I got to tell you, from staff standpoint, we were very disappointed. I mean, for PG&E to double the cost of this project in a year is
And I think it's also just terrible timing because you have, you know, the disasters in Montecito, every contractor.
well, yeah,
you
it sure
know,
looks like they're trying to,
yeah.
you know.
Well, that
PG&E's
was-
just going to take advantage of us. You
That
know?
was Edison. That was Southern California Edison. That was not PG&E in Montecito.
Yeah.
But it was PG&E up in San Bruno.
PG&E's
But
got
then-
gas
Well,
now.
I'm just saying it's still it's
No,
a
no,
draw
I'm
from
not
the
arguing
workforce.
with you.
Okay.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just clarifying.
Yeah.
Then, thank you, Matt. Let's go to the audience for public comment. Do any four of you have a comment?
Anybody?
Okay, with that, we'll bring it back to the council for action, and I'd like to recommend that we table this until some further time. No, to unlimited time.
Yeah, just to mention, so PG&E has finished the design basically.
Right. 10 years from now,
So,
the
I
design will
mean,
still be viable.
Yeah, the poles aren't. You know, they're just gonna be the same poles. You know, I mean, yeah. So, and you've created the underground district. So, you know, I think it's definitely something you should consider. I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, like Councilman.
Are you suggesting that we go ahead with the tabling of the motion of the?
Well, I'm just saying that's that's a good option because you could see down the road when the economy drops, the construction prices may drop, and some people may be more cash strapped, and we might be able to get a better. I mean, it's actually a good deal, 35 cents. But you know, if the timing was right, a few years down the road, you could.
You're going to run into an issue with your grant funding for the sidewalk project, though.
Yeah, so that's my
Expire.
question was, how does that play out?
Yeah, well, so we have to proceed with the sidewalk project.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
we didn't.
we have a time window. We'll lose the funding if we don't proceed.
How much
So-
funding do we have on that?
168,000.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And how much more work will it be if we do it that way and move the poles and all that?
It's somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 more. You know, we'll try to keep that down, but one of the
Can we pay for those pole moves with our 28 credits?
no, it's not undergrounding it. It's just moving the poles.
Is there a chance if we table this for a little bit, then you'd have time to poke around with some other agencies and see if we can find, I don't know, 15 cents on the dollar?
PG&E gave us two names, Kings County and I forget the other agency, but I can contact them. But I thought the going rate typically had been 50 cents per credit. That's what a lot of, and so when I found out that they sold credits, Pismo Beach just did a project just like ours, where they were short. No surprise.
Well, surprise. Huh?
And so they bought a bunch of credits from Kings County. So, yeah. So it's not likely within the next couple of years we're going to find any credits, any better deal than this. But if we wait till the next, economic downturn, we can keep the project in the 10-year capital improvement plan and just keep sliding it out until the economy and economic situation is right. And I know the property owners will be disappointed, obviously, because they're looking forward to that.
Sure.
But
How much time do we have until we lose, where we ultimately have to move forward? Otherwise, we're going to lose the funding on the grants for the sidewalks.
that's a good question. Our schedule is to design, do all the engineering, the right-of-way acquisition this year, design next fiscal year, and construction the year after that. So basically 2 years.
Oh, okay. So we have some time to, because what I'm looking for is with the wastewater treatment plant that we need, and then also with the goals around stormwater funding. A lot of that's going to be some more detailed financial analysis and review of our reserves. So, you know, I understand, you know, the opportunity that's here, but at the same time, I want to be really cash conscious because it is a lot of money that we're talking about here.
I feel that's the wise thing to do. We agree with you.
So I'd like to move that we just table this and revisit after we come up with a strategy around these other programs we have going on.
I'll second that. Been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Toussaint?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jameson?
Yes.
Waite?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
And that passes with a 5-0. Council reports. Does anybody have any council reports?
Brad, why don't you tell them about the library visit?
Oh, the city of Goleta is going to bring staff up, I think Wednesday of this week, to tour all the San Ynez Valley libraries in anticipation of potentially moving into the newly created Zone 4. And I believe you've got a meeting coming up on your.
Yes, I have the EMA, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting on Thursday.
All right, I have SBCAG and APCD to report.
I watched those. Can I leave?
You got a closed session item.
Oh, all right.
Would you like to do the report instead of me?
No, no.
You probably could do a better job. So, all right, where, oh, there they are. The only significant occurrence was we had several items in the consent calendar that were consent items. There was a rather poignant, emotional presentation to one of the Caltrans. You know, there's a under SBCAG is a service called the Freeway Service, where the money that we receive from we receive $1 per automobile registration that goes into the call box or the call boxes or the phones on the side of the freeway, and it also covers this freeway service. So in around Santa Barbara City, if there's a car in distress, a guy rolls up, gives them gas, recharges a battery, hauls them off the freeway, that kind of thing. And this particular individual was the first respondent to a traffic accident, and the individual in the traffic accident was so distraught they were tempted suicide. This individual stopped that. He was honored with a standing ovation from the audience and from the directors on board that he did a heroic act, and he should be very well recognized for that. He got all sorts of commendations from his employer. He works for Smitty's Towing, and so that it was really something this guy did. He went way over the thing. Okay, then we had the draft regional growth forecast. Now I gave Ryan a copy of that, which shows the growth in the county, and specifically it shows growth in Solvang, number of household growth, number of population growth, number of jobs, and those sorts of things. And I've given it to Ryan so he can meld it into his calculations on things we have to concern ourselves with. So, and that was really an eye-opening sort of a thing. The local streets and roads needs assessment report. All the roadways in the county are assessed as to the condition, and we had that report, and we are nearing not so good. I can say that. Not so good. And then, of course, I'm on the CalVans board, and I made my report about the CalVans board. End of SBCAG. APCD. APCD follows after 1 o'clock after the meetings with those every other month. we had a closed session regarding the executive director's performance review. I can't discuss what that went on in there. Note we had our a consent calendar with consent items, just like, and then we had a public comment and a director's report on the community events. And there were some proposed amendments to certain rules that they have to obey for operating permits. And we held the hearing. The hearing went closed, and that was the exciting day we had at APCD. Any questions? Did I do that all right with that? Okay, thank you. With that, you know, I've been reading the advanced calendar. I think I'll go to that right now. For our next meeting, which is November the 13th, is a Tuesday because of the holiday, a resolution for support of healthy eating, active living, the city council goals on stormwater funding, the discussion and consider the Solvang Library move to the Goleta zone, and the second reading of the smoking ordinance. That'll be on the next calendar. And with that, we'll go to closed session. May please announce that.
City Council meeting closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator, the agency representative, and the designated negotiator, Dave Fleischman, the city attorney. The employee organization is Teamsters Local 986.